when I was a stockbroker or financial advisor, I had a phone and I had a computer. And at that point, there was no do not call list. So I just called 200 people a day. I
mm,
got
mm,
50 people to pick up the phone, 5 conversations. So
mm,
what I ended up doing, I always realized same thing about procrastination. It's the worst thing you can do because you get nothing
mm,
done because you have to get the momentum. I knew that if I called 20 people, if I just
mm,
picked up the phone, the first 20 dials, I'd inevitably get a hold of one person and inevitably they'll
mm,
tell me to go yourself or
mm,
scratch or never call me again. And I was like, well, I'm
mm,
still here,
mm,
why was that so bad? So then you just get used to doing it. And all of a sudden you get
mm,
into a habit of doing it. It's like
mm,
exercise, like anything else.
mm. My guest today is Evan Turk, founding attorney of Turk Law Group in West Palm Beach, Florida. Evan has spent over 15 years building a boutique practice focused on asset protection, estate planning, and tax optimized structures for high net worth families. And I found out that he is also a personal attorney of Donald Trump. So thanks for coming on my show, Evan.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So, Evan, in this show, what we basically aim and discuss really is that how we can help other attorneys and managing partners um, get to a certain level of success that you've achieved. So, starting from the very basic question, when you started your law firm, was it based on some sort of market research, or did you just wanted to start an estate planning or business law firm?
Well, before I was a lawyer, I was in finance. So I had a financial company when I went through law school. So I had a good understanding that I wanted to do estate trust and asset protection. Out of law school, I got an offer I couldn't refuse, which was it was in asset protection and estate planning, but it was primarily working in insurance, writing multi-million dollar policies for business owners as part of their tax strategy, asset protection, key man policy, things like that. I did that for a short period of time, but I realized I needed to get back to practicing law. Um, so I created my own practice based upon my strengths and my knowledge base.
So at that time, what made you decide that you want to move back to law, basically law practice? If you were handling already high net worth individuals, wasn't that sufficient at that time?
That was ultimately the way you made your revenue. So that would be position everything for the sale of a life insurance contract. And I didn't want to be a life insurance agent. I wanted to be an estate planning attorney and really use my license. I always felt that I could take that knowledge years from now or years from then, which maybe even years from now, and entertain that. But I wanted to be more well-rounded and versatile in my area of expertise rather than limited to that 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 one subject.
Right. And that, obviously, I believe insurance selling is one of the hardest things, right? I believe. And everybody, yeah, a lot of people are sick and tired of people calling for insurance. Do you think the experience you gained there, you made those sales, did it really help in running the law firm, or is it your law knowledge that made it happen?
I think both. So I feel like from an insurance position, what I did learn in the area of law was you didn't say, "Hey, I'm selling you a life insurance policy." In where I am, I'm not selling a trust or a last will and testament. What they both have in common is you identify what the problem is and we become the solution to that problem. So I think it helped a lot in identifying, people don't know why they needed trust. But if you said to somebody, your hard life earned savings, all the years that you sacrificed, do you want to go to your children, or do you want to go to the IRS or some creditor? Like when you get to an asset base where, my cost, it becomes a non-issue because it's inconsequential to the value statement. Um, it's what is the value statement to get you there? And that's really what life insurance probably, sold me to. I mean, I was working with a lawyer that got his law degree from Harvard, and he was selling life insurance. So, um, but if you looked at his bio and background, it was never about life insurance. That was just a solution to his expertise, to the need that the clients knew, or he educated them on having.
Right. So that means what I understood from this, point was that you need to create some sort of value uh, from your services, and then you basically make sure that the person understands what they're going to get at the end rather than the service they're buying right now. Right. So,
Correct. In
yeah,
transactional law, I mean, you have to explain what the benefit is. You have to capture what the risk is without the service, and create the nexus to why they want to work with you, and make sure that you're not just based upon your price and that they're shopping around. And what's surprising is about 99% of my clients, they're not shopping around. Either they trust me and they do business with me, or they just don't have the ability to make a decision. And it just, the decision is that they'll do it later, which is a decision pretty much to do nothing.
yeah, that's a great point because you're right about that. And obviously, when you're making, you're trying to sell your services, I just want to, know this very point before I go to the next question. Is that how do you create that value when you're basically selling anything? It could be, it could be you could be a PI firm, you could be a family firm, anyone. How do you create that value or that messaging so that it resonates with the people who are basically talking to you?
Well, you have to circle yourself with the right network of people who are like minded, they are successful, they understand what it means. The majority of my clients nowadays are business owners, entrepreneurs. So they understand what it means to get sued. They understand what it means to get blackmailed and extorted. They understand what they had to do to create their wealth. And these are the circles of people that I work with, I dine with, I run into. And when we talk, um, inevitably, when they know what I'm doing, and usually they know what I'm doing, they'll ask me a question. Next thing I know, they're sitting in front of me, either on a Zoom or in my office.
Right. And when you basically want to get in touch with these people or this particular group, what is the best way to do so if you're nobody in the start?
I'm sorry, how do I meet this group? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah. Because,
Okay.
let's suppose I'm just a new lawyer. I've just graduated. I'm out of my college. Now I want to get into this group, right? Where I learn and I meet these people. So how'd you do that?
Right. So for me, starting back more than 15 years ago, it was who your network was. So originally, I would go to networking groups. Um, I did seminars, and at that point, I was not looking for the higher end tickets. I was looking for the quantity. So I priced myself at a point where it was quantity driven. But as time progressed and my wealth increased as well, and my networks changed and evolved, um, my practice did accordingly. So I realized that you can do one client's legal work or 10 clients' legal work and get paid exactly the same. Um, but I'm no longer a number. I'm no longer a price. I'm a value statement. So what I ended up doing to get from one level to the next level is I created my own niche. So what I did was here in West Palm Beach in Florida, down the street is this beautiful polo grounds where they have
Mm,
polo, which is something that most people don't even think about going to. So
mm,
my practice, we rented or became members of the club and had access to a tent where we would have private events every Sunday when there was polo. And I would go around at charitable events, at galas, Palm Beach and Boca Raton, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale. And I got to know the right people there. One in particular was somebody who was, or still is, an auctioneer. So we would get free tickets to these events by volunteering the polo tent to whoever won it and 6 to 12 of their closest friends. So then I got into an atmosphere every week where I would go to these events to network people, and people will come to me to
mm,
network. And I said, "Oh, what do you do?" I didn't say, "Oh, I'm an estates and trust attorney." I would say, "Well, I help a lot of entrepreneurs keep their wealth and make sure that they reduce their taxes and keep it from one generation to the next, and make sure that your money works most effectively by working with, not against your advisors, your CPA, your financial planner, anything." And by the way, my title is an estate trust attorney.
mm,
So I said it backwards instead of forwards, because if you said estates and trust attorney, they already put you in
mm,
a box and didn't know what the
mm,
value statement was.
mm.
So going
So,
back, that's probably what I learned from the life insurance world. No one said, "Oh, I sell life insurance
mm,
policies."
mm,
Nobody would talk to you. People would run
mm,
away.
exactly, exactly. And there's one point that you mentioned that's very important, and that you said you picked a niche, right? So, did you do that early on, or did you just when you started rolling with some cases, and then you decided, okay, I wanna, just
I did that
focus.
early on. I remember
Mm,
right out of college, I worked in the investment space by accident. It was that I just didn't want to move back home. It was the first job I got.
mm,
And then I realized when I was 21, I looked very young. I looked like I was like 18 at most. And my job was to sell $5 million of assets under management.
mm,
And, it looked like I was very inexperienced just by looking at me. I couldn't pretend I
mm,
was doing it for 10, 20 years.
mm,
So I teamed up with estate planning attorneys out of New York. I was in Princeton at the time. And I had a group of experts. So I learned how to strategize a sale based upon that niche, and said, rather than cold calling and say, "Hey, we have some good investments. I'm with Prudential Securities here in
mm,
Princeton." I would say, "Hey, we're doing a seminar on the value of getting your estates in order." I'm like the
mm,
quarterback of that. So then I
mm,
got a good understanding of estate planning, trust work, asset protection, and I sold. And I was one of 18, I believe, the first year
mm,
out of a group of 183 that moved forward and didn't
mm,
get their job terminated. And one of nine, I think, the following year. And the reason
mm,
why was that I learned how to create a network,
mm,
and a concept where I'm not an individual, it's a team approach, and I'm just one part. And I may not have all the answers,
mm,
but neither did Henry Ford, but he aligned himself with the right people. And that's what I really found that was the most successful part of my career in getting started. Before I had, a Rolodex of,
mm,
20 multimillionaires I could call and pick up the phone
mm.
and they'll answer it and say, "Hey, yeah, I could use you."
Yeah, and that's basically a wonderful point that you've made. But most of the people I talk to, right, and I invite them for my podcast, they're absolutely, and all of them are lawyers, so they're absolutely scared from, I think, coming in front of a camera even. And you're telling me that you're meeting these people, very ultra high net worth individuals on golf courses. Why weren't you scared? And if somebody is today in picking up a phone or going to meet somebody or going to an event like this, what should be on their mind?
Okay, first of all, there's two questions, so I'll address the first question. When I was a stockbroker or financial advisor, I had a phone and I had a computer, and at that point, there was no do not call list, so I just called 200 people a day. I got 50 people to pick up the phone, 5 conversations. So what I ended up doing, I always realized same thing about procrastination. It's the worst thing you could do because you get nothing done because you have to get the momentum. So I knew that if I called 20 people, if I just picked up the phone, the first 20 dials, I'd inevitably get a hold of one person and inevitably they'll tell me to go yourself or
Mm,
scratch or never call me again. And I was like, well, I'm still here, you know, why was that so bad? So then you just get used to doing it. And all of a sudden you get
mm,
into a habit of doing it. It's like
mm,
exercise, like anything else.
mm,
So that's like the first part. And the second part is like what you asked about golf course. I don't golf, by the way. I mean, I
mm,
golf, but
mm,
I joke. I say I get my money's worth because I hit the ball more than most people I golf with. So I get to, be in front of that golf ball a lot more times than the average golfer. But
mm,
what I end up doing is I think what the biggest advantage is when I did this thing at Polo, and I didn't realize it at the time, was I know a guy who's very successful. He has a beautiful house, and he'll never go to anyone's house or event.
mm,
He's spending money. He's being the center of attention, and people are
mm,
coming into his house. So he's holding congressional fundraisers, charitable fundraisers, anything and
mm,
everything that people could come to his house and he could present himself for a 5-minute presentation.
mm,
So people inevitably are intrigued by this person. And I kind of took that. He's one of my good friends. I kind of took that model and I was able to do that because of Polo, because I had something that most people wanted to do. And I had a group of people that most people wanted to meet. And by being creative, by going to these charity events, all of those things, all of a sudden I'm being invited to billionaires' houses
mm,
and not on a level of how can you help me as an attorney, but like I need your advice, or I just think that
mm,
you're an interesting person. By the way, what do you
mm.
do? Inevitably, they're
Yeah.
going to need to hire me. So it's not
Mm,
selling my service; it's selling myself, putting
mm,
myself in a position where people look at me and every year when polo season starts, you have a list of people that you haven't talked to all year, and all of a sudden they're reaching out to you because they wanted
mm,
that coveted ticket to polo. It's one of the few things where, you know, you can meet the whole family in one event, not usually just the husband or the wife, but the family.
mm,
You can get
mm,
4 hours of one-on-one time with 3 or 4 different potential amazing clients or referral sources. And once you do that, you create your name and your reputation. You end up going to other events, and people come out to you and say, "Oh, Evan, how you doing? I haven't seen you. Were you at Polo? Were you this? Were you that?" All
mm,
of a sudden, you get invited to things. You get asked to be on boards. You just have to start from somewhere with a plan to get people who are your market to come to you
mm,
to get
mm.
to know you. And that's what we did.
Exactly. And I think it's a very important distinction that you've created, and that is knowing your market. Because obviously, if you don't know who you're really selling to, you're probably never ever going to sell in large numbers or basically in large value. So, how do you define the market, first of all? And the next question I have is that once you were selling, you were doing the financial stuff, is it easier to sell to high net worth individuals, or is it easier to sell to people who are much below?
Well, it's easier it's much more difficult to sell to high net worth people because A, they think they know it all. B, they have somebody that can do it. And C, time is of the essence, right? That it's like time is never right because they're always, conquering the world. But
Mm,
what you will find is if you find them at the right moment, at the right time, especially business owners, one thing that they're better doing than anyone else is making their decision. They'll make up their mind and they'll come with their checkbook. So when you market to the masses, its price always becomes the issue and you have to sell yourself. Where when you're dealing with the higher end clientele, I find what works better is I talk them out of hiring me first because it's a two-way street. And I just say, one of the first things I do, and it's serious, it's not like a sales approach, is that
mm,
I want to know if I could help them and if I
mm,
could work with them.
mm,
Are our values aligned? Are our goals aligned? Because one client can raise various issues. Like right now, I'm dealing with
mm,
one that
mm,
we didn't do the most amazing due diligence on, and the
mm,
family, the client's husband and wife passed away, and now I'm
mm,
dealing with the children, and the children
mm,
are an absolute. Um, I don't want to call it a nightmare, but they're very challenging.
mm,
Um, and there's various influences that are not
mm,
at the highest level,
mm,
and you're not dealing with the most candid people. So what I always do now is I say, look, the way my plans work, it's long term, it's relationship based, it's family driven. I have to really understand your family dynamic
mm,
before you hire me because
mm,
inevitably there's going to be a part of my career that's going to involve working with them, and I want to know if we can
mm,
work with them. And if I could really truly add value. Like if we're doing this multi-generational strategy, I want to make sure
mm,
that your children aren't drug dependent or
mm,
have bad marriages or make just
mm,
bad decisions or,
mm,
find their way into the criminal justice system and, or they're just very litigious and will tie me up in court over stupidity, not over
mm,
anything else.
mm,
So I do a due diligence report on these clients and say, I'll come up with a proposal, but I have to really give me a couple of weeks before or a couple of days before
mm,
I decide whether or not we could really be the most suitable, um, group for you. And
mm.
it's an interesting approach because you're not taking on everybody. You're being highly selective. And quite honestly, and a lot of those clients you don't take on because you look at their past and you see that
Mm,
they filed 30 lawsuits over
mm,
the last 30 years. And who wants to deal with someone who's litigious over everything?
mm. Yeah, exactly. And this is slowly, moving towards my next topic, and this is basically about running an actual law firm. So when you are onboarding clients, right? What are the key metrics that you see before you want to work with them, and you see that they are fit for your firm, fit for you, and obviously your mental health as well, because like you said, there are people who can be an absolute nightmare.
Well, one of the first things I've done, this is recent. I mean, a couple of months ago, um, I started creating extremely comprehensive engagement agreements with different price tiers. What I have done inevitably with my practices that you get so involved with the families that they become like extensions of your family and who you are. And all of a sudden, you're getting texts at 11 o'clock at night or text on the weekends, calls. So I took a lot of time saying, okay, if you're texting me on the weekend, um, you're expecting me to work outside business hours. And if that's the case, I charge at a different rate. Even if it's a flat fee, you're going to be charged more money. For example, a good friend of mine, client of years, some of my clients are on a monthly subscription. We do that
Mm,
model as well. And he's one of
mm,
them. Great guy. But he needed something which required the entire weekend of attention, and there were about 6
mm,
other people. So every time you send an email out, you had to wait for all 6 people to chime in and respond and then take on the next project. So it was an entire weekend, although it might have been 3 hours of work because you're constantly having to stop what you're doing, checking emails, checking texts, things of that nature.
mm,
And those are the things you really have to be very intelligent about, is running a practice. This is not a friendship here. This is a business. This is how you survive. This is how you put food on your family's dinner plates, right?
yeah,
On the dinner table. So it's just be honest with people and say, look, I love what I do, but I don't love it
mm,
that much that, you know, 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, I
mm,
want nothing more than be in front of my computer answering a question from you.
mm,
Oh, look, this is the way it works. Like, if you reach out to me, do not reach out to me by cell phone or text message. Reach out to me by calling my office or sending my assistant an email. I talk to my office staff every single day, and we can identify the emergency of this and put you on the calendar accordingly. What I try to do is put everything on Zoom now because we then get
mm,
transcripts and recordings. And I
mm,
make sure that all my clients are aware that our Zooms are transcribed. Not, they're privileged,
mm,
but I had somebody who was accusing me of, you told me this, now you're telling me that. And I go
mm,
back and here's the transcript. I
yeah,
said, and here's the summary of the transcript. AI is great
mm,
for that
mm,
because it could just summarize, did I say this
yeah,
person? And it said, no, you didn't say that. This is what you said. So now you're not going crazy. And
mm,
what are they going to say that you have the evidence behind?
yeah,
You're doing a plan, and they said, well, I don't think that you should worry about this, and then you don't worry about this, and say, what are you talking about? I never said that. Like, here you go. But it's
yeah,
everything is done in a way where the engagement itself covers all those things.
mm, yeah. That's actually very, very right. And technology has actually helped in many ways. But this is where we're going to talk about when you're basically running a law firm. It's not just dealing with clients. You have to have a marketing setup, then you have an intake setup, you have an operations, then HR, and so many other functions. So how do you basically glue them all together?
Well, you hire the right people is number one. So, and I've only learned this because I hired a lot of wrong people. So you basically hire somebody. The way I do it is I have somebody who runs the operations of my
Mm,
practice.
mm,
So um, it's critically important because as an entrepreneur, you have to wear a lot of hats. So I
mm,
have a bookkeeper, I have a CPA that
mm,
boy that um, deals primarily with the one person from my office, and my office then
mm,
says to me, you know, these are the things that I'm going to send you an email. I need
mm,
last 3 bank statements, or
mm,
I need an Excel spreadsheet of this or that. But nothing's an emergency. And things
mm,
like, oh, today is April 15th. We have to reach out to the CPA because we have to file
mm,
our tax returns. But you definitely need somebody who can fit 2 roles. It's like
mm,
in the roles that I define it is there's 3 requirements. The first requirement is they have legal experience. The
mm,
second requirement is that they have common sense. Um,
mm,
and the third is a great attitude.
mm,
Um, Common sense, because I may say something and they may take me literally instead of
mm,
figuratively, and then all of a
mm.
sudden we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
Legal experience, because you need to be able to rely on them to do sometimes 80 to
Mm,
90% of the dirty work to get it to
yeah.
you. And then where my expertise shines,
Mm,
and the third is just as important as the other two. So if they have an attitude, if they're
mm,
negative, um, you want to call somebody and say, yeah, I can do this. Or look,
mm,
I can't do this right now, but if you need me to do this, these other 3 things are gonna have to wait till next week. What do you want me to do?
mm,
Consider it done, Mr. Turk. Thumbs
mm,
up. I mean, that's the
mm,
attitude you need that, I had somebody who would just say no. When she got so stressed, she'd say, "No, I'm too overwhelmed."
mm, mm.
And, hopefully she's not overwhelmed wherever she is, but she's not with me anymore.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah, exactly.
enthusiasm, like, glass is always half full, not half
Mm,
empty. I don't wanna
mm,
know about your challenges. I wanna know
mm,
the solution. So, "Look, I've been dealing with this challenge, but
mm,
here's my thought about it, and here's the solution,"
mm,
rather than, "Evan, we have a problem."
mm.
And that all has boils down to attitude.
Yeah. And also, I think a lot of law firms have not figured out that what exactly the metrics are before they make a decision. So when it comes to, you know, keeping the data clean, for example, you don't know how much you're spending on Google ads. You don't know how much you're spending on, video editors who are basically making a podcast go live. You don't know whether you should even have a social media team or not, right? Or if it's the right team getting you the right metric. So how have you solved that? And what are the metrics you look at? And is it like, do they have a physical form, or is it just guessing that you or somebody does, and what are the effects of?
Well, since we are focused on higher net worth individuals, we don't do Google ads. Everything comes to us as highly recommended
Mm,
in or they know me from someone that they trust um implicitly. So the thing that where we measure everything is what I used to do in the past, which was a big mistake, was somebody said I would want to meet with the attorney, and they'd come to the office, and then I would sell
mm,
them on, they come to my office, and it was the biggest waste of time. And I'll get to that in a second, but what I now do is I take a 15-minute Zoom, and actually, I say 15, it's never 15, it's more like 30
mm,
minutes for
yeah.
me to just know who this person is.
Mm,
And if the second, if it makes sense, I summarize the conversation and do a proposal. And if they don't sign it and they don't pay the initial engagement or retainer,
mm,
then there's no chasing, like no follow
mm,
ups, no nothing.
mm,
Um, but everything is done because of name and reputation. And there's a few really good, strong people who I know, and those circles change, but my circles right now feed 90% of my business. So I don't do Google AdWords. I have to
mm,
update my website. People aren't finding me on the web. They're finding me just through strong, close networks. So when I
mm,
come along, price is not the issue. I'm
mm,
not going to lose or even care to lose a client because if they said, well, this guy is going to
mm,
do it for less, I said, go for it,
mm, mm,
and I won't.
mm,
This is not let's make a deal here. So I just really keep it to can they work into the system that I created? And the system I created works best not only for me, but it works best for
mm,
them because I can get things done in an intelligent manner where everything is recorded. We have very
mm,
little one on one contact in person.
mm,
That's like the final stage. So often, I don't even meet clients till either they're signing the final legal documents,
mm,
if I see them at all.
mm,
Sometimes, we send it to their team and they sign and send it back. Maybe
mm,
2, 3 years go by.
mm,
And if at all, that I meet the person face to face.
mm, mm. But for a lot of people, right? I just want to know: is this like your own, like your experience that mostly the referrals work, and almost entirely for you. But don't you think that it is sort of a limiting kind of marketing where you do get your message across some people, but there might be some very high net worth individuals who might not know you? What do you do to make sure that they get your message and they
Well,
take action?
well, I'm on podcasts. Social media is important, but you have to be very careful with what you do in social media. You know, if somebody has a picture with the president of the United States or a picture with their favorite actor or athlete, um, and they take these pictures and they put them out, you have to ask, what are you telling to the world? Look who I am. Look how cool I am.
Mm,
Or is there something more to it? So you really have to paint a story of who you are, and not be in a way where I kind of like it to be a little understated. Um, but people know who you are because, like, I have a charity that's First Amendment civil liberties. Um, we have a big marketing team there. They're doing a ton of social media, but it goes onto my news feeds. So people know who I am among the 5,000 Facebook friends or
mm,
the probably 10 to 20,000 people I have all across social media. So when you start posting things that people are going to find relevant, whether it's information on divorce or um, the reason why you need a trust, but sprinkled in there with 30 other things that really create you as your person and your personality. You'd be surprised how word of mouth can spread, and you don't need that many clients to succeed. You just need the right clients.
yeah, exactly. So, even you talked about this charity, right? Could you share what does it do and what is it about?
It's one of the other things that I've done over the years is I've taken on highly selective cases on First Amendment issues, and I was asked to create this charity. Originally, it was for people who you know, to get the truth out, what happened to January 6th, or at least some of the truth that people were not hearing
Mm,
because political viewpoint wanted to share a story with a specific narrative one way or the other.
mm, mm,
There were people, picture this, on January 6th, walking through the Capitol building, just
mm,
upset, thinking that they're protesting. And I'm not talking about the
mm,
people who threw things at windows.
mm,
I'm talking about people who walked in there to just protest. And they
mm,
inadvertently got into this situation where they're now considered not protesters, but
mm.
a lot worse. They're criminals. They're
Yeah,
insurrectionists. They weren't
yeah.
insurrectionists. Some might have been,
Mm, mm,
just like George Floyd's situation, right, which was happening pretty
yeah.
much at the same time. You see people creating fires, but most of the people were just protesting.
Mm,
And it was funny how the media treated the George Floyd protests as compared to the
mm,
January 6th and the harshness.
mm,
So I was
mm,
asked to get assistance for the people who were really, you know, if I shared the story with you, you wouldn't kick them out of your house, no matter what your political
right.
viewpoint is, right? You just understand them. They're the mothers, their fathers,
Mm,
grandparents,
mm,
family, businesses, and the way they treated people. Like one
mm,
in particular, that's all he did. But rather than going to the police station and turning himself in, he had a lawyer, and that's all they needed. No,
mm,
they took his whole SWAT team of 20 some odd police
mm,
professionals,
mm,
guns blazing,
mm,
armed kids, and that's when I said, you know what, I need to fight up for this. It's not
mm,
about your political position. It's about, because if it's now the Republicans are in
mm,
power, All of a
mm,
sudden, they can be doing it against the Democrats. And now what we have is
mm,
a society has not evolved, but devolved.
mm,
So what also has happened in that time is the suppression of free speech. We
mm,
had a great example is right before the 2020 election with
mm,
Biden. Biden's son's laptop got exposed, and
mm,
the a reputable newspaper, New York Post,
mm,
it wasn't like some fly-by newspaper, did a very detailed report. And if you just
mm,
shared that on
mm,
social media, you were banned off their media.
mm,
You were treated as like an outcast. And this is not
mm,
freedom of speech. And
mm,
living here in America and seeing what's going on overseas in a country such as the United Kingdom, as an example,
mm,
it's yeah, even Canada, our neighbors up north,
mm,
you lost free speech.
mm,
And it's not the free speech that doesn't affect you. It's the ones that shouldn't affect you at first, because it will eventually, if you let that slippery slope, it's going
mm,
to get so bad that all of a sudden the things that are near and dear to you, you can't express.
mm,
So we really focus on a lot of First Amendment issues, and
mm,
we've been doing pardon work with people who, if they deserve to go to jail, it wasn't
mm,
for more than a month, maybe two, and they're getting 20-year sentences because it's politics are involved. Um, and that's not the country that claims to be free and mighty and
mm,
powerful and American.
mm,
And I'm 49 years old. I grew up in 1977. I was born. So I grew
mm,
up during the time of Rocky Four,
mm, mm,
with Drago
mm,
and very patriotic songs when the President
mm,
Reagan was in office. I remember
mm,
9/11, how we all
mm,
united as a country. I've
mm,
never seen such a country that has been so bipolar,
mm,
just shouldn't say bipolar, just diverse in two different
mm,
opinions. You're either um, on one extreme or the other,
mm,
and
mm,
the middle ground is not is
mm,
represents 40 to 60% of the population, and they don't have a
mm.
voice.
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. So, what do you think that has led to this situation that we're seeing right now? There's extreme political divide. There's also an extreme, I believe, some sort of religious divide within Christianity as well. So, what's happening right now, and why is everything going downhill?
Because I'm trying to make this simple, and I'm not trying to sound like conspiracy theorist. So take President Trump. He's not a politician. Okay. We've never had anyone in the course of history of America, at least modern times. And when I say modern times, let's just say
Mm,
from
mm,
Franklin Delano Roosevelt on.
mm,
Okay. Where at
mm,
least, my grandparents could tell me a story of what life was. You never had someone like President Trump. He, remember the first time he was doing the Republican debate, Megyn Kelly basically talked about Rosie O'Donnell and the way he treats women, and he didn't give you a political answer. He gave a Donald Trump answer.
mm,
He berated everybody on that stage,
mm,
talking about how Rand Paul has big hair, Marco Rubio has big ears, all
mm,
of these things. And
mm,
there are two crowds of people that voted for him, in my opinion. One was the were entertained by him, and they said, "Well, it's refreshing to have somebody that's not a politician." And the other group is the people who was that 40 to 60% of the population that
mm,
just felt like they were never heard. That it didn't
mm,
matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. It didn't matter
mm,
if you're Bill Clinton or George Bush. The country's
mm,
going to be the same country.
mm,
And then when Trump came in, it seemed as if the Democrats had no expectation of him ever getting
mm,
into
mm,
office. And it felt like they had a lot of skeletons in the closet, a lot of things that they
mm,
weren't expecting that could have gotten exposed by
mm,
somebody who wasn't part of the system,
mm,
wasn't part of that swamp. And they got scared.
mm.
So they went after him personally. They went after anyone who was close to him. They put people in jail. Roger Stone is someone who I know personally, and you
mm,
may like him, and you may not like him. He's
mm,
definitely a unique person in the sense that when
mm,
you meet him, you'll have an opinion one way or another.
mm,
But if you look at why he went to jail or was going to go to jail for 8 years, it makes you
mm,
think like, is this the America you want? It's not.
mm,
But I think what happened was in order to get the swamp back to the swamp, they went
mm,
after the president in an unprecedented way, especially even when he was out of office.
mm,
So now all these rules were broken. There
mm,
was no decorum. So you either
mm,
for that party or against.
mm,
President Trump was able to prove to the Republican Party that in order to succeed as a Republican, you have to be part of the MAGA agenda.
mm,
So, what did the Democrats do? In order to succeed in the Democrat Party, you have to become a socialist.
mm,
So, there's no common ground anymore.
mm,
There's no middle, there's no meeting of the minds. You have someone like Senator Fetterman, is like the only Democrat in office
mm,
in Senate that thinks independently.
mm,
Um, Anyone else who does that, they'll destroy.
mm. And do you think what can be done to create that middle ground, so reduce the polarity, so people can actually sit down, talk, that these are the issues we got to fix. This is how the country's direction should be, set, so that we don't have any future problems. Because you see, there's a lot of abuse of power right now as well. People are getting fired, people are leaving the government, and then obviously on certain things which come out, I'm not sure if it's true or not. Just now, the naval chief, I think he was made to resign or he was fired, and a lot of things are being hidden right now, so it's not common public knowledge. So what can American people do today to fix the issues that may, you know be so big in the future that there might be no way to return to any good state?
Stop being so political and use some common sense. So, give you an example. In Virginia, the Virginian majority voted for this woman to be the governor of the state, and on her pledge was that she wasn't going to affect the voting of the restructuring, gerrymandering of the
Mm,
districts. At that point, I think it was the Democrats had a favor, maybe 3 to 1. Don't quote me on it, but now it's 10 to 1. So she absolutely
mm,
lied to her constituents,
mm,
and then changed it where there's no level playing field.
mm,
So now Virginia is going to have unless the Supreme Court of Virginia decides
mm,
otherwise.
mm,
That means that 3 or 4 Republican seats in Congress, among other
mm,
things, are no longer going to be there. Okay.
mm,
Knowing that if you're a Republican, you're going to say, okay, take
mm,
what's happening in Florida. Right
mm,
now, DeSantis is saying, we just saw what's happening in
mm,
Virginia. So now we have to counter that, and we're going to do some gerrymandering ourselves, possibly.
mm,
So now we'll get it back here. And this is what happens. One party decides to do something that was unconscionable. And then when the other party in favor, who would have never have stooped that low, they said, well,
mm,
the other side stooped that low. The only way we
mm,
can combat that is do it ourselves.
mm,
And that's where we are. So to answer your question, how do you get back? You have to first you have to fix the voter, and so that not just half the
mm,
population believes in it.
mm.
The entire population should believe in it. Voting should be
Yeah.
very simple. Um, I think the mail-in ballots were the ultimate change in who was in the office. Biden over
Mm,
Trump. I
mm,
think when you have more votes for Biden from black
mm,
people than Obama, you can
mm,
tell something's wrong. And
mm,
those were the mail-in ballots.
mm,
So even there, if there was no harm, and Biden would have won regardless, half the population doesn't believe it. So
mm,
make it where people feel that their vote's going to count and that they're an American and that their vote is going to count. And it's not going to be belittled, or it's not going to be, you're not going to be lied to. And by saying that if you need to prove an identification at your vote, to show
mm,
that's who you are, that's racist. Because I think that response is in and of itself beyond racist. Saying black people and other minorities are not smart enough or educated enough to get their own ID. I mean, that's how
mm,
racist it is.
mm,
You have to have honest conversations. You have to put people
mm,
who deserve to go to jail in jail and not prosecute
mm.
those because of political ideology.
Yeah.
And you have to fight for the other side, because if the more you fight for the other side, hopefully that side will see it and fight for you.
Yeah.
We have to fight for the future of what's in the best interest of America. Every time Trump's in office, all they want to do is impeach him. And the latest is becoming mentally incompetent. I mean, how
Mm,
can you say that when the prior president, needed direction to get on a stage and off the
mm.
stage?
Yeah.
Um, we can't have an honest conversation.
Mm,
You look at people like Chuck the Schmuck Schumer. I'm sorry, he's
mm,
just been in Congress for forever.
mm,
There's enough that he'll say one thing with such adamant force,
mm,
which contradicts what he's saying now. Like,
mm,
we need politicians who have a backbone. I mean, I don't see how all Republicans believe that abortion's wrong and all Democrats believe
mm,
abortion's right.
mm,
And if that what makes you a Republican and Democrat, then you're forgetting 900 other issues that are important to one
mm.
side or the other.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand how, if you could be a Republican and there are 900 things that you have to be a part of, how can you agree to
Mm,
all 900 things? Or
mm,
vice versa, how can you disagree to all 900 things as a Democrat? I mean, the political system is the problem here. I mean, we all know
mm,
that, but it
mm.
gives people power, and people, once they're in power, they don't want to give it away.
That is absolutely true. And great advice there, Ivan. And what I basically believe is that people need to come together, they need to have debates and talks, and obviously, they need to have patience for the views of others. So that's very, very important. So, Ivan, um, originally my podcast is basically more about technology and how operations are done. But it has been a really good podcast, learning about your views, and you've shared some interesting points today. Is there something that you want to tell us about something you're doing right now to my audience, so they can, be informed that I haven't asked?
Yeah, well, besides the charity, I'm going to plug the charity for a second. I mean, we're just there to fight social injustice, primarily on the First
Mm,
Amendment.
mm,
We're seeing a great rise in anti-Semitism unlike any time before in my life.
mm, mm,
Um, yeah, so that's a big cause that we're fighting, because we have to fight for the minority voice. Because if it's not for us, who's going to fight for them, right? So on the charity side, that's a big push that we're going to be doing, because it's something that is just unconscionable what I see. On my law firm, we're working with a lot of niche people who
mm,
have created wealth, may be illiquid, may have built everything and put it into a mom and pop shop,
mm,
and
mm,
they don't know what to do. They don't know how to transfer it to their kids. They don't know if their kids are going to be able to run it, but they want to provide for their children, but they don't want to provide for the children spouses that may end up divorcing
mm,
their children.
mm,
Also, they don't want to be in a situation where they're encouraging their children to make bad decisions because of the power of the dollar.
mm,
What we do is we sit down, we have very strong, powerful conversations with our clients, not
mm,
just in questions that they understand, but questions that they don't, things that they never thought about.
mm,
Taxes, reducing estate taxes or multi-generational taxes, or the value of putting a foundation
mm,
together. So
mm,
if you have wealth or are on the process of accumulating wealth,
mm,
um, I may not be the solution for everybody. I'm definitely the solution for the right people, though. So you could find me at Turk Law Group, www.turklawgroup.com, or on
mm,
social media at Evan.
mm,
I think it's mostly Evan W. Turk Esquire. VANWTURKESQ. My charity is the American Rights Alliance, ARA. So we're at Donate ARA, because we need donations to remind people. But
Mm,
let us know how you could help us and how we can be of value to you, and just keep those lines open.
yeah. Thank you so much, Ivan. We were basically putting all your links and your bio pages in the description, so people who want to donate or who want to get in touch with Ivan, they can definitely contact him. Thank you so much for coming to my podcast. It was a pleasure, Ivan, having you on my podcast today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I really do.
Have a nice day. Bye.
You too.